Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.
Hello there and welcome to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast. I'm Greg Oram and with me we have my podcast partner, of course, Richard Spray. On the panel, it's Raf the Random Pundit and our good friend Jamie Tatler. Now then, Nottingham Forest are on a high after the demolition of Spurs last week, and now we look forward to the trip to Craven Cottage for the Monday night football. We'll be talking about where Forest are at the moment, what we're expecting from this game, and a few of the things that are starting to stand out now we are well and truly into the Sean Dyche era. Fulham away brings its own trauma from seasons past, but with both teams being very hot and cold in recent games, this one literally could go either way. Let's just hope any meltdown is theirs and not ours.
Well, it's played out from the back. Sangare nicks it, has to score.
Yes!
Instead it's Hudson-Odoi who puts it in after the corner.
Oh my God! He always does this, Vicario! Just kick the ball up. No, don't blame Gray. Don't blame
Hudson-Odoi taking on Bentancur, twisting one way and then the other. And Farah. Oh! It's gone straight in! Hudson-Odoi!
How did that go in? Oh my God! Oh my days! Oh my, it's over! Two bam, top in the corner. No one.
Jigs away for one, lays it back for Sangare. Oh! What a hit! What a goal!
Free blood! Oh my days! It's free blood! It's free! It's free! It's free! Oh my God! Free!
I've spent the whole week just reliving those goals. I haven't been at the match, and then when I found expressions having multiple meltdowns on social media, I thought I had to give him his moment, his Goldbridge moment on Talking Reds. We're going to talk about the Fulham game, of course, with the panel, and maybe we'll chat a little bit about how that Spurs performance might impact us going into this one. But just whilst I can remember to do so, I ask you to hit like and subscribe in this video. Those of you that are watching, please go ahead and follow us on all social media, etc., etc. And also, give us a 5-star review if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. That would be very nice as well. All right, Richard Spray. Good to see you, buddy. We got Fulham on Monday night. We're bringing up the rear on this game week. How are you feeling about this one? What are your general thoughts, buddy?
Feels like this is a good chance for exercising some demons of years past where we get shellacked by them, at some point. So hopefully that's not going to be the case. I don't think it will. I think we've shown the stability defensively has seemingly come back. But I don't want to jinx that by any means, but it seems like it's there. So feeling pretty good. But again, we've gone through this undulation of win-loss type situation in the Premier League. So hopefully we can buck that trend as well and actually get 2 consecutive wins in the Premier League, really get some momentum with other teams around us. You don't want to be too focused on the scoreboard watching, but ultimately just focus on handling your business. But I do think there's opportunity for us to progress up the table a little bit this weekend. So it'll be great to kind of be the ones bringing up the rear, as you said. So we'll kind of already had a picture of what that looks like and what's happened within that table prior to that, but feeling pretty confident about the way that we're operating. And it's nice to have that depth and those folks that were gone previously from injury and having them back. It's an unfortunate loss by having Sangare go off to AFCON and, situation with Yatesy, not having that depth, but it's good to know that Dami looks like he's going to be available, to have him available in that midfield area where we are a little bit thin at the moment. So, but feeling pretty confident, just not overly confident, very cautiously optimistic.
Spurs was one of those days when everything seemed to click, Raf. I mean, was that Forest, I don't want to say turning a corner because we've had some good performances, but as I said, we have been a bit hot and cold, but was that potentially for a chance now for Forest to build on, going into this Monday night? I mean, was that a perfect storm or was Spurs more awful than we were good? And how do you see the Fulham game?
It's interesting, and I know a lot of people have been going, well, Spurs are, played so badly, therefore we played well. But I think they're not mutually exclusive things. Like, to play well forces the other team sometimes to play badly. And I think we imposed it's brilliant to say we imposed ourselves on them, which is so rare for us really to say these days, but I think it's becoming an increasing trend. So I think that was the nature of it. And for me, there's one standout thing I'm hoping for, and it might be that turning point, Greg, that you mentioned in the phraseology that you just used there. And we, as was expected, to have a massive hangover after European games midweek. And that's seen by absolutely everyone. It wasn't any surprise that was going to happen this season. It's happened to Newcastle, happened to Villa, happened to everyone recently. Last season, Villa could not win for love nor money after their European games. It was great for FPL predictability and many other things as well. But they suddenly clicked at the back end of their league games, and they won for the first time, and that started Villa's massive trajectory up the table to where they were basically chasing us down, as it then transpired. So I'm hoping that's kind of the springboard where we see, with people coming back from injury. Yes, Angari's gone, but as a whole, the squad is getting fitter and people are coming back, which means that we're less impacted by that kind of hangover after a European game. So I'm actually think it might be quite more relevant than people think. And I'm cautiously really optimistic.
Yeah, I think we're right to be optimistic. What about you, Jamie? I mean, as I said to Richard, we are bringing up the rear this game week. How do you view that? Is that a positive? Does it matter really too much? Once we've had a look at what everyone else has done this game week, does that make any difference to the players on Monday night?
I don't know if psychologically it does or it doesn't, but I think the extra time on the training pitch certainly will. I can't imagine you'll ever hear Sean Dyche complain about getting 7 or 8 days in a row with his players without a match in the middle, because that's been very rare for us this season. So I think it probably is. The extra day could make a big difference from that perspective. Going back to Tottenham, I would completely echo Raf's thoughts in that, like, Spurs, they didn't just play badly in isolation. It's because we set the tone early that they were going to get no time on the ball, they were going to get no space, we were going to press it really high, really energetically. And when you set that tone, you can build a platform to dominate a football game, and that's exactly what we did. And it was, at the preview show with you guys, that was the team I wanted to see, and it's the team that started. I was really pleased to see that, minus Sells for Victor, but that worked out fine in the end as well. So I was delighted. It was a really attacking lineup. I thought really front foot style. To me, that was as good as a performance as I remember doing since promotion. Honestly, like we've had some great results and we've won some really hard fought games, but I don't remember as kind of dominating a team as clearly and obviously as that for quite a while. I think it was as good as the Brentford performance on day one. And I think the exciting thing is, and I'm trying not to get carried away because it was only a week before we had the Everton performance, but I think a lot of those players still aren't at their ceiling. Like, I think I said to you guys in our group chat, like, arguably, and he didn't play badly by any stretch of the imagination, but arguably our least influential player against Tottenham was Gibbs White from an attacking sense. So he's got so much more room above him to grow into. And when that's got to click to the ways that it has done in previous seasons, in addition to the other threats we have and the passing moves we're making, yeah, it's a really compelling prospect, I think. So yeah, prospects are looking good. Fulham are a bogey team for us. They have been for a while. They've got a pretty good home record. I'm sure Raf will get into the stats and stuff later on. But I had a quick look earlier, and it seems like they don't lose many at home. But they did lose to Palace, and anywhere that Palace go and get a result, you feel like so could we. So I think we're not. I'm optimistic that we can get something. I don't think it'll be an easy game. I think a draw would be a great result, but I don't fear us going there and getting tonked like we have done in previous seasons. I think we'll be competitive for sure.
Okay, thank you. I want to say good morning to Steph. She's with us in the comments. She says, "Morning all and happy holidays. Good to have you with us, Steph, as is Big On. Up to you as well, me old mucker. Brucey says, good morning, gents, and he's very happy that Jamie is bringing the class to Talking Reds this morning. Mark, wait, NFFC says, a Merry Christmas to you all. Thank you for the £2 into the pot. And our good friend Steve Battlemuch is also in the comments as well. He's saying 7 of the top 8 in the Europa League group stage went on to make it to the quarter-final. I think that would have been last year's season he's referring to. The only other team that made the quarter-final finished 9th. So for us to get into the top 8 could be vital for the success in that competition. I still think the top 8 is more than achievable. So we absolutely have to have that as a focus. Dr. Anna is with us. She says, I'm here. She's just recovering from Amsterdam. We saw the pictures. We know what you got up to, you dirty stop out. All right, let's continue with the Fulham chat. It was a game against Spurs, just on that, Richard, where we had standout performances all over the pitch. We know about Ibrahim Sangare. Callum Hudson-Odoi with a brace. He's been a bit hot and cold. He hasn't really got going this season. Is this a proper revival, do you think, now? Or do you think maybe we're still in wait-and-see territory with him?
I mean, it's somewhere in between. If you're putting it on a scale between wait and see and I think this is a revival. I think it's the beginning stages of that revival, but it's still a little bit of trepidation on how well he'll do, because we know it can shift into teams starting to create that doubling effect on him to try to limit his ability to cut across the front of the box and then provide service to others like he did, where he sucks players to him and it opens up spaces for others. So they're going to try to limit that for sure. But we saw this in his first season with Forest. He had this sort of hot and cold first half or close to first half, and then he sort of accelerated. And I want to say he had more goals in that season than he'd ever had previously. I think it was 8. So what you hope is that, and he's unequivocally, I mean, most players are, but he's unequivocally a confidence player. And when he's feeling it, right, it's so evident optically as well as statistically how he's impacting the game. And so there's definitely, his right foot hasn't been quite as elite this season as normal, but he's definitely showing signs of it. When we saw that in the previous match against my gosh, my brain, old man brain, previous Premier League match where he had that nice shot on goal and it got saved. It was, right there. If you maybe slotted a bit higher, it would have been there. So I think he's moving into that arena of being back to sort of more of an elite, difficult player to deal with for opposing defensive players. So I'm definitely feel like, and you've just seen signs of it as he's come on, and maybe he's a little bit healthier. He had the dead leg issue. Maybe, fitness levels getting to where he wants to be, where Dyche wants him to be as well. So a lot of positives there, a lot of belief that he could turn the corner, but still a little bit hesitant to say full on revival, but I think it's definitely right there on the precipice.
So Fulham, Jamie, as you said, have been a bit of a bogey team. The 5-0 is still scars me deeply. I was there and it was really, really painful. And I was also there last season as well, when we just didn't really seem to turn up. We ended up coming away with a 2-1 defeat again. We are sitting 16th in the Premier League on 18 points and slowly but surely under Dyche, edging our way out of it. What is this game for you? Is it a must not lose, or is it, I think you said you'd be happy with a point, but do you think maybe these are the teams we need more from? The teams that are in and around us, that's where the maximum points are going to have the maximum effect for us.
It's certainly not a must not lose, not at the stage of the season we're at, and not in the position we're in with some breathing space between us and the relegation zone. So I don't think we should paint it in that light and put too much pressure on it. I think at this point there's enough games left for us to pull away regardless of what happens on Monday. So I would just like to think that we see another performance, a continuation of performance, a continuation of progression on the field. The result would be nice, but I'm not going to panic stations if we lose the game, as long as we don't put in an Everton-esque performance. So I'd love a point. I'd even more love a win. But if we lost a tight 1-0, but played really well and had chances to score and just didn't get the bounce of the ball on the night, that I think would allow us to just, okay, we'll chalk that one off, move on to the next one, and not kind of hit panic stations as we all did a little bit after the Everton performance. So result I'm not. I'd love a result, but I'm not going to put too much pressure on the result. I just want to see a performance. I want to see a continuation of progress on the pitch. I want to see the players that we've already talked about continuing their mini revivals, and impacting the game. And that's what's most important to me, rather than saying we have to get a result here, because we don't in reality.
It is tight down there. When you have teams that start to pick up points, you get fans thinking that all of a sudden they're going to go on a bit of a run. I mean, I'm talking about Leeds. And Dr. Anna says West Ham will get pumped by City, which we all think and hope will happen. But she says she suspects Leeds will beat Palace. All of a sudden, Leeds have won a game and drawn a game and looking a little bit more compact. Palace played last night in the conference, albeit with a completely different 11. I still kind of feel that Palace are going to have the upper hand on Leeds. I'm still thinking Leeds are the one that are going to go down. So I'm not quite ready to kind of suggest that Leeds will start winning games left, right and centre. Andrew's with us in the comments. He says, if we lose on Monday, does Rich get the presenter hot seat again? He's the lucky charm. He will be. We are going to be on more of a rotation going forward. You will see more of that because we are mixing things up a bit. There's going to be a few different things coming your way in the new year, so look out for that. Andrew also goes on to say that Fulham is important. We need to show, and definitely we need to show, we can string 2 performances back to back. The Everton and Brighton games both linger on for sure. All right, so we are previewing the game against Fulham. Let's have a closer look at our opponents.
Send them back to East London! We send them back!
I hope anybody's not stupid enough to write us off.
I think Raf's going to be in attendance on Monday night as well, and here he is to tell us a bit more about Fulham.
Cool. Yeah, no, I'm a mainstay at the Fulham games. So that PTSD that you're talking about, I've been suffering it for about 2 decades now. And it is real. So as much as all the omens, and we'll come on to have a look now, I think the omens are good for us when we have a look at Fulham, but I still don't believe it until I see it and I walk out of Craven Cottage with 3 points, because that has not happened in a long while. When we have a look at Fulham, and I'm going to wrote back as well, Greg, to your comment about how important this game is. And what I actually think is this game is more important to Fulham than it is to us. And them losing it is more deeply impactful to them than if we lose it. And I'll explain that as we go on. So where we actually sit, both of us are actually in cracking form. And you look at the form table over the last 5 games, you know, we're sitting 5th, Fulham are sitting 6th. We both won 3 out of the last 5, which is comparable to Newcastle in 4th, Arsenal in 3rd. It's just they've got a draw and we've got 1 more loss than them. So we're both actually on really good form in the league. Our issue is that our 2 losses were pretty bad in those. But again, that's a bit of context. We're very tight in the league. They're on 20 points. We're on 18 points. And so, again, a win will put us above them. And with what we're going to come into is if they end up being behind us in the league, I think with 5 games and their league games, I think we've got 5 league games. I think they're all league games. It's certainly not in Europe. I'm not sure it's cup, but I think it's 5 league games in 16 days over this traditionally very busy Christmas, New Year period. With the state that they're in, it's going to be really, really challenging for them to keep tabs on us, Brentford, and potentially the magic of Leeds, and they might be a bit downwardly mobile. There is here the graphic of their last games. They've got those 3 wins. They've got the 2 losses. The 2 losses, well, Man City, fair enough, and Palace. Now, Palace was at home, but Palace are far better away from home, and they've won 5 of their 8 fixtures away from home. So actually that loss, wouldn't read too much into that. Everyone tends to lose to Palace when Palace come to their place at the moment. But what the real shocker is, if we have a look at how they've lined up against Burnley, against Palace, against Man City, right? So the stability they've got is how we play, which is that 4-2-3-1, which seems to be favoured by most of the mid-table teams. And then what they really are quite hampered by AFCON. And I think this is what quite a few people know. But Jukwezi's gone, Iwobi's gone, and Bassey's gone, right? Now, that takes out a huge chunk of that. Well, it actually pretty much takes out their entire left-hand side, other than maybe Anthony Robinson, who's coming back. And you've got the other part where I think Anthony Robinson should be coming back. He's an amazing player. Don't underestimate him. But also Ryan Sessegnon, who is the alternative left back, is also injured. So their kind of left side is pretty decimated right now. And this is the left side that they've been using through Burnley, Palace and Man City. So on that left side of the pitch, that's 3 out of 4 of their last 3 lineups are not going to be fit for our game and probably won't be fit throughout the whole of AFCON as well, either away or injured. So it's really, really significant. They'll probably have Leno in goal. Anderson will be back as their centre back. Now, between Bassey, who's going to come in, it might be Kurenka or it might be Diop. I don't know if I'm even pronouncing Kurenka correctly, but he was the one that got the nod against Newcastle in the Cup. So he might be favoured over Diop. Anthony Robinson did play against Burnley, and I think he will probably come back in the side. And if anyone's seen Anthony Robinson live, it is a frightening prospect when he's up to full speed. So that's not really a downgrade. On the right-hand side, it will be Tete. And again, he likes to cause a bit of chaos down the right-hand side. Berger will be in the middle of the park. But this is where then we're not quite sure who's going to partner Sander Berger in the middle. Now, Sasha Lukic has got about a 5% chance of starting. But if he doesn't start, it could be Josh King, it could be Harrison Reed, it could be Tom Kearney, one of those 3 to do a job to be sandwiched into that midfield. But I mean, they have hardly got that many minutes, those 3. So we really are kind of going into not particularly match fit players per se that are going to be put into that midfield. With Chukwueze and Iwobi out, and again, that left-hand side, that left winger is going to be Kevin. I'm nearly sure of it. And Kevin, even though he's only got 3 starts, he has got about 420 minutes under his belt, and he is quite tricky. So that, again, isn't a massive downgrade, although Iwobi has been having a really, really good season. You get Smith Rowe, who's going to be in that 10 spot. And I would say their form player, Harry Wilson, off that right-hand side, who in seasons past has been a bit of a super sub, but he's actually turning into a starting 11 key player for them. And then up top, Jimenez will be leading the line just because they don't have any other options. The only other option they've got off the bench really is 18-year-old Kusiaser, and that's it. They've got no other strikers. So Jimenez is going to have to lead the line. And Kusiaser has got 19 minutes all season. So it's Jimenez or nothing really up top, which really shows the fact that other than the players we've talked about on their bench, they've got Adama Traore and Pereira, who hasn't even had a single minute yet so far this season, as the only viable subs on their bench other than the people I've talked about. So that's really the state of where they are. If we go to the next slide, you can see those injuries. So we've talked about Muniz up front, their striker, injured. And that's going to be until Feb. But Ryan Sessegnon is not going to be back until the new year. And then we've got the 3 players that we've talked about off to AFCON. We've got the grim reading about the Fulham head-to-head results. And we've won once since we've come back up, and we can even extend that back further, and it's just grim. And that was it was at the City Ground where we won 3-1, and that was the second game in that really useful run-in that saved us. Not last season, but the season before. Other than that, we've been it's not even draws. We've just lost like the whole time. So that's why I'm very, very cautious. Optimistic, but very, very cautious. We have a look at set pieces influence Fulham games massively. They've scored 6, but they've conceded 6, which is like 26% of the goals that they score come from set pieces, and 23% of the goals they concede come from set pieces. So they will probably be a very important factor at both ends of the pitch in this game. So we really, really, really need to be organised from them. Crazily, they've benefited from 3 own goals already this season, but which is really, really helpful for them. And I would say, though, if we can cause some chaos in their box, they've given away 2 penalties and they've scored 2 own goals themselves. So getting wicked crosses into the box and really putting it in the mixer might give some sort of benefit from either an own goal or a penalty. Now, I've talked about most of the left side has been knocked out. Well, 41% of their attacks come down that left-hand side. So that might get augmented a bit. But actually, with Kevin and with Anthony Robinson down the left-hand side, they still might be using that left-hand side quite a lot. Even with the threat of Harry Wilson off the right-hand side, which they use 34% of the time. And only 25% of the time attacks are coming up the middle of the park. Now, the reason they've been quite down the bottom of the league, and they are camped 31% of the time in their own half compared to 27% in the opposition third. And when we've been doing these previews, that's one of the most polar stats that we've seen. It's usually a lot closer, within about 1, maximum 2% difference that's there. So that is quite actually telling. And we might see the fact that we have more of the ball in this game, which actually is an upwardly trend. I think it's 8 out of 12 games now where we've had the majority of possession in the games that we played under Dyche. When we have a look at where the threat's coming from, there's nothing crazy about this. It's pretty standard, evenly balanced shots from the left and the right, 15-16%. The rest are coming up the middle. In the 6-yard box, 13% of shots are inside the 6-yard box. That's on the slightly higher side, but it's not as high as other teams. When we look at Spurs, I think there was 16%, for example. And well, you see how ineffective that was. So there's nothing really special to look at from where the shots are coming, and they're not favouring left, right, tap-ins, long-range shots in any way, shape. They're just coming from wherever they might come from. So moving on very, very quickly then, just that this is like their home games of where they've had Palace. I've said it's no surprise they lost to Palace. Man City, no surprise they lost to Man City. Then they beat Sunderland, which is actually pretty good, but actually Sunderland away from home are not that great. Their forms all come at home. They've won 2 out of 8 away from home. So it's not surprising they beat Sunderland, not surprising they beat Wolves. They lost to Arsenal, not surprising. And they beat Brentford, who are woeful away from home. So that's not surprising. So we can't really learn anything from their home form other than they've won 4 out of the 8, which is definitely better than their 2 from 8 away from home. We look at their top players on SofaScore. Chukwueze has been the masterstroke and the find, even though he's only just really started playing off that left-hand side. But he's got a 7.21. He's away at AFCON. Iwobi, 7.03, away at AFCON. The only other 2 players that are 7 are Harry Wilson, that I've talked about, on a 2.19, and Anderson in the centre of defence with a 7.11. Then we go on to the goals. Now, you look at Harry Wilson off that right-hand side. He's got 5 of them. Smith Rowe from that 10 has got 3 of them. And they are their main goal threat that actually sit behind the striker, not the striker. Jimenez has got 2. And you're looking at that threat behind the striker, which is why when we look at it, this is where whoever's coming in for Sangare is going to have to be really on it, along with Ando, of closing down that threat. But then you look at their goal scorers: Chukwueze on 2, Iwobi on 2, Sessegnon on 2, all out, right? So Bassi's chipped in with 1. That's out. So Jimenez has got 2. Tete from right back's got 1. And Sasha Lucic, who might not be fit, is the only other goal scorer on 1. So we've got to keep Wilson and Smith Rowe quiet. And I think that will probably do the job. And how many times have I said the fact that Nico Williams is kind of the key from a threat on the right-hand side? Nico Williams is going to be the cheat code. If we can shut down that right-hand side, that will go a long way to actually neutralising what Fulham have got. Again, assists, 4 came from Chukwueze as the leader. He's off at AFCON. Harry Wilson's got 3. Iwobi's got 2. Those are the top 3. So, you know, they've only got Harry Wilson in that top 3 that's actually going to be available to them. Jimenez has chipped in with 2, and then, you know, there's the odd one that's around. So when we have a look at it, you can see how depleted they are and how key those players that are off at AFCON are for them, and and also Sessegnon being injured as well. That is actually quite a bit of a problem for them. Very quickly go to the heat maps, and it's really puzzling. You can see the fact that Wilson has hardly got any red on his heat map, but you see the fact that he's moving all over the pitch, defensive half, and also in the attacking half. So he is working hard, like Dyche likes from his wingers as well. But again, he's got slightly more red in the defensive half than the attacking half, but it shows you the fact of how efficient Wilson is with the ball. So he makes his use of the ball count really, really well. Smith Rowe really in the 10, but he's kind of doing a Morgan Gibbs-White all over the pitch thing with more time on that left-hand side. But I do think he's been deployed on left a bit over this season, not always in the 10. He can play on the left-hand side. But it does show the fact he has the ability to drift, which we need to be mindful of, like teams have to be mindful of Morgan Gibbs-White drifting in that 10 spot. And Jimenez is like a good old Nuno or Dyche striker. He's absolutely everywhere. He's on the penalty spot. He likes getting on the penalty spot, but he's also waiting for that ball to then have to him to then bring in everyone else around him, like we see that we're using Jesus for as well. So you can see a bit of similarities in the style. But as you can see, that's why I'm cautiously optimistic. But if Fulham lose and they go behind us, and they've now lost 2 at home on the bounce at home, and home's where they're getting their points from, and they suddenly realise we're really in hot water without our AFCON players, I think, and you know everything is not well with the manager there as well, I think it will get very ugly very quickly over the Christmas period if they lose.
You're on mute, Greg.
As soon as I started speaking, I thought, I know I'm on mute. Let's hope that we can be the start of them having not a Christmas cracker, but a Christmas pooper. All right.
The Cheese Trader, based on Grape Lane in York, is a cheese lover's paradise. Home to some wonderful specialty cheeses, relishes and chutneys, and also with a fantastic street food menu. Try their loaded fries or posh cheese on toast. It'll be the best you've ever had. Owned by Forest fan Stu Freestone, the Cheese Trader proudly sponsors Talking Reds. Quote Talking Reds every time to get 10% off your order. The Cheese Trader and Talking Reds, the perfect cheesy mix.
Indeed, the perfect cheesy mix. Stu Freestone is a legend. We thank him very much for being our sponsor. I believe that the last shipment for Christmas is now passed, so you will struggle to get cheese delivered. But hey, New Year's a thing, so think about New Year. I think he might be taking some time out from the shop once they close down for Christmas. So by all means, check out the bio and you get 10% off every time. Just to say that we will be back on Tuesday to do a review of the Fulham game. That's going to be around midday BST. And we'll also be back on Wednesday. That's Christmas Eve, when we will do our Christmas show. And that will feature the whole gang. Everybody will be at some point coming in, and we'll be doing some nice festive Forest stuff. So we're looking forward to the Christmas show on Christmas Eve. All right. Jamie, Fulham on Monday. If you could pick one thing you really want to see from Forest, let's call it like a non-negotiable. And I'm not talking scoreline. I'm talking one thing that you absolutely want to see on display from Forest, like an actual behaviour of sorts. Maybe I'm talking about the ability to defend the box or defend set pieces or be ruthless when we're on top. Is there one thing that you say, you know what, if we see that, I'm happy?
First of all, just well done to Raf. That is a masterclass on like data visualization and threading a narrative through telling a story around the data. And I'm sold. Like, we're going to be Fulham now. That's it. It's hard to look at that and not feel more bullish when you consider the data. So yeah, that was fantastic. So, Greg, your question, I would say that I just want to see the continuation of our us building on our like foundational platform. And by our foundational platform, what I mean is Murillo and Milenkovic. That was the foundation of our success last season. We've missed Murillo for a couple of games. I firmly believe the Everton performance wouldn't have been half as bad. I don't know about the result, but the performance would have been much better if Murillo had played that game instead of Morato. That's a huge, enormous downgrade. And I think when that partnership is at its best, that's when Forest are at their best. So I want to see a continuation of that. And I remember years ago reading an article that said that the best centre-back pairings are a cat and a dog, right? I don't know if you've heard this before, but it's a perfect analogy, really. And with us, it's so true. It follows that perfectly. So Milenkovic is the dog, right? He's energetic. He wants to battle. He wants to challenge. He wants to win that ball as quickly as possible, and he wants to give it someone else so he can go again. Right. Murillo is the cat. He's more sly. He sits off. He uses his head, and he'll very efficiently nick the ball when he knows he can, and then he'll keep hold of it because he doesn't have to then chase after it again. So it's a perfect analogy, that cat and dog behaviour. And when you think about the best centre back partnerships in the Premier League throughout history, they kind of follow that mould. Think about Vidic and Ferdinand. Think about John Terry and Carvalho. Like cat and dog, and you can instantly tell which one I'm referring to. So I think that's a key thing for Forest, and if we can build on that foundation, keep them both fit, give them a run of games, then the performances and the results will follow.
If only I'd known we were going to get cat and dog analogies, I'd have had sound effects lined up and everything. I was looking through my soundboard thinking there's got to be a dog in there somewhere. I think I've got one, but not loaded up. But I love the analogy, and actually, yeah, it works really, really well.
The Italians have nomenclature for it. So, like in Italy, and I'm going to probably butcher this. I'm trying to remember the name, but like the cat is the what's the name? Oh man. I'm gonna let me try and find it quickly. But the cat is the libero. The libero type defender is like the cat, the kind of sweeper style, and then the canataccio, I think it's called, is like the aggressive man marker. So they distinguish their centre backs by one of two types, and we don't really have that differentiation in language, but we certainly do in style.
We are a very refined podcast as well. So for those of you that
here's the class that Bruce was talking about.
For those that can't see, Rafa just pulled himself a top up of his tea from his teapot. He's got to his side. So we have teapots, we have cats and dogs. Richard Spray, we have a Forest team to present to the stage. We normally kind of come up with our own one, but I think everybody had the same consensus that with Sangare going off to AFCON, we think that it's likely to be this team. And now it doesn't show the goalkeeper actually, and that actually is an area where we probably need to have a conversation. So is it going to be Sells back, or is it likely to be John Victor? We just don't know. I guess the question I'm going to put in there for everyone to maybe think about is, has John done enough to maybe disturb Sells from his place? You know, does Sells come back in automatically? And that's just a question that I'm opening up. I'm not suggesting that I've got a view on that either way. The team that we think it will be, folks, is that back four of Williams, Savona, the cat and the dog of Murillo and Milenkovic. And we think in the midfield, alongside Elliot Anderson, we're saying Douglas Luiz, although there's going to be a conversation around that in a moment. And then we're saying the same front four of Morgan Gibbs-White, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Omari Hutchinson, and Igor Jesus. Dominguez looks like he's fit, possibly back in, so he might be something to think about. What are you thinking, Richard? Is this the more likely of all the players? We've got players coming back into fitness now, one by one. Where are you at with this? Is this if it's this? Are you the happiest if it's this? I mean,
I would be definitely happy with this particular lineup. I think this is current state, probably a Sangari. Obviously, with him being at AFCON has been discussed, and coming off the performance he had, he's definitely a loss in that way. But it's not a bad problem to have with Douglas Luiz right behind him. So the interesting thing with Douglas Luiz, so you can make the case with Dominguez, and it doesn't show what Dominguez's stats are. And credit to Danscape, because he's the one who put this together, and he's got a few player ratings on here that I think are key to be cognizant of, particularly with Douglas Luiz, how high he scales, at least this season, I think is where the stats come from, on the destroyer typology. He's got a 9.4 score on that typology. And if you think about him, he definitely has creative attributes to him. We've seen what he can do in terms of the vision he has to pick a pass, the ability he has on set pieces, and so on and so forth. So him and Elliott both, I think, have that capability clearly, but it's that destroyer component that we really need, because we know Sangari's not in there. While Sangari looked really good moving forward as well, didn't play as deeply in that match against Tottenham. He was kind of vacillating between these two different depths and positions. We did see Douglas Luiz against Utrecht actually play in a deeper way, pick up the ball in a deeper area, which a lot of that had to do with probably Anderson not being on the pitch as well. But having that destroyer metric means he can kind of fill in to a degree and be a complement to Anderson, who's got higher levels of conductor and midfield engine sort of metrics. So I'm glad that we have that sort of capability to look at those, because the question was, can those two guys really be an effective partnership, just simply because of them playing very similar? At least historically, they would have been kind of likened to one another. That's great to see that. But I would say most ideal state clearly would have Aina at the right back, but Savona's done a decent job. He's been effective. He's gotten 2 goals. He's shown the ability to move up the pitch and actually provide an outlet for Morgan or whatever on the right-hand side, link up with somebody like Amari Hutchinson as well and provide support there. So that's good. Igor's kind of the man who's, by virtue of injuries, inked in right now. But I think he's been absolutely incredible. And I think it was stated the other day that had he not, even if Wood had been back and healthy, I still think Igor starting, which I can't disagree with. So I think then the goalkeeper side of it, just to dip into that real quickly, 75% chance it looks like that Sell's going. I think there was sort of like classic sort of Daesh non-committal sort of injury quote unquote update that said, he looks like he could probably do it, but so it remains to be seen. In terms of Victor, based off of a single performance, I feel a little bit better. It's moving into the direction of feeling better about him being between the sticks. But in terms of supplanting Sells, I would say no. I think he'd have to have a string of performances where Sells out, Victor comes in, and he shows that level of ability that we saw. While he wasn't challenged too much because of how poor Tottenham was, the reality was he did have, when he was challenged, he was up for it. So that definitely breeds a little bit more confidence, but I wouldn't say he's going to supplant Sells anytime soon.
Yeah, I think in the comments, Andrew's saying if Sells is fit enough to play, Sells plays, no question about it. Brucey says no, Sells is the starter, no doubt. John has gained our confidence in his abilities after a few follies, as long as those are gone. I agree that I think if Sells is fit, he is the first choice goalkeeper. He comes back in. I am very much in favour that John Victor, gets game time, but I think we've got 2 European games, albeit in the new year now, for him to get that. I expect John Victor to play against Wrexham as well. Maybe we'll see Angus Gunn, Andrew, against Wrexham. Maybe, who knows? We'll have to wait and see. The other interesting one as well, and I was going to bring this up, but Colin mentions that Williams is on 4 yellows. He's been on them for quite a while, and I know that you have to, they get wiped after you played 19 games. After you played half the games, that's 3 more games. So I wonder where Dyche's thinking is with Williams. My view is that he plays, and he plays him, and you roll with it. I mean, I think one of his yellow cards was a very unfortunate yellow card against, I can't remember who it was now, but maybe it was Brighton or someone else. And I think that he plays with no Aina available to play for us until January. If he does pick up a yellow card, we've got Zinchenko back, and we just have to suck it and see. So my view is that Williams plays regardless, and you just go with it. He's got the fitness levels, he's got the longevity to play. I wonder,
Greg, on that, it's illogical for him not to play, because if you're not playing, you're effectively just that's his one game ban for getting 5 cards. So you might as well just play him. And then if he gets it, he gets it.
Well, that's what I think. I think that's what I was trying to say. So I don't rest him just to worry. It's like, well, yeah, you're right. If you're resting him, then you're taking him out of the firing line anyway. So whether there's the Man City kind of element, but I kind of feel like we're not in a headspace to start kind of like saying games of free hits. We beat Man City last season. You know, our home form in our last game against Spurs was exceptional, and I think on our day we can still catch them out. Jamie, I mean, looking at this team, which Forest player do you think that this game really suits, if any?
I think I don't care who the opposition is. I think every game, Elliot Anderson is the man, isn't he? Regardless of the opposition, because he's that good. He's a very, very special player, and I've been thinking about what makes him so good recently, and I think it's what he does better than almost anybody else in the league is the speed in which he can problem solve, right? And that's what you're paying for at that elite level. Like, he's not like a freakish technician that you do get occasionally at that kind of elite level, like a Ryan Cherky at City. Like, he's just a genius with his feet. Like, technically, you've never seen anything like it. That's not Anderson. He's good technically, probably better than average in the Premier League, but everybody's really good technically in central midfield at the kind of upper end of the Premier League. What sets him apart is his problem solving. So that makes him really, really special. He'll take the ball anywhere. Doesn't matter how many players he's got around him. He's got really quick feet to get out of trouble. And whenever you watch him play, obviously I watch a lot of games on TV. I live in the States. I'm going to be in Nottingham for the Everton game at home, actually, but that'll be my first game of the season live. So I watch a lot on TV. And when he's got the ball at his feet, you can at any point pause the TV and look at what options he's got available to him. You know, he could pass it to A, he could pass it to B, he could pass it to C, he could progress the ball himself. And when you've got all the time in the world to look and decide what the optimal choice for him to make would be, whenever you hit play, that's the choice he makes every time, because that's the problem-solving element of his brain that makes him really special. And the only player I can remember that was like that, because I've heard people talk about Anderson like he's a new Michael Carrick, and I don't see that at all. I don't think he's the same profile as Carrick at all. I think he's a Fabregas. I think he's like Arsenal's Fabregas. That's the other player I remember being that sort of intelligent at problem solving wherever he was on the pitch. So I don't care who we're playing. If we can bring Anderson into the game and give him the ball in the right areas, he will solve the problems to progress that ball up the pitch, and we can really hurt teams and get good results.
What about you, Raf? Is there a case for Dominguez to start instead of Douglas Luiz, do you think?
The only reason why I kind of changed what was potentially the starting lineup is to have someone on the bench that brings energy and tempo when they come on. If we've had that lull that we've got in, and Hutchison was that before he's now made himself a starter on the right-hand side. So we need someone else on the bench that can do that. Now, for me, Dominguez kind of brings that energy. So I quite like that. He gets on, he starts literally running everywhere and bringing up that tempo. So I'm happy with what we've got. And actually, it works both ways. If Luiz comes on, everyone's suddenly like, whoa, okay, world-class player on the pitch. Let's raise our game and let's get going as well. So I think it can work both ways. And I think that's the one position that's potential who plays which way. So I'm not minded which way round it happens. But for me, I'm really excited to see where Callum's going at the moment. And I think this might be another game for him to carry on that journey. I think it's no coincidence that his rise in form came back from being actually fully fit for the first time, I think, in a long time. And Hutchison, with his direct style of play, being on the right-hand side and actually starting games. One, getting Callum to up his game, but two, having a serious threat like Elanga used to have on that right-hand side, which pulls the pitch over to that side, creating space for Callum. But secondarily, suddenly, with Luiz taking shots when he's on from outside the box, Sangare smashing in balls from outside the box now as well, and being that box crasher The threat from the centre of the pitch means the fact it's more difficult to double up as well on Callum. And I think all of these things are now connected in some way. But that threat from the middle of the pitch, because let's be fair, Morgan Gibbs-White doesn't bring goal threat from outside the box, but it's actually those other players that we've now got. Louise getting back to fitness, Sangare. I love it when he shoots. He's got an absolute cannon. He should be doing more of it, and we see now why. So for me, it's a bit more of that and how my brain works about lineups.
What I would add to that, Raf, with Callum, is that even when he doesn't play that well, he still makes a lot of positive contribution to our overall game. And you probably know better than I do with some of the underlying statistics, but I remember certainly last season, he was our most progressive ball carrier. So he gets the ball into feet. He very rarely gives it away. So he's a great ball retention option. And he progresses the ball at feet more than any other player usually. So even when he's not got a goal threat, even when he's not taking players on and hitting curlers from outside the box, he's moving us up the pitch, which compared to like a Dan and Doy is a big positive addition, because like in that Everton game, Dan and Doy literally completed 5 passes in 45 minutes. That was his contribution, 5 passes. You're always going to get more than that from Callum, regardless of how well he plays. So that's why, for me, he's always in the team on that left-hand side.
Okay. We got just a few more minutes left.
Just you go ahead and hit like and subscribe to make sure you never miss a Talking Reds episode.
Please do so. All right. Dan and Doy, you mentioned then, Jamie. Someone else in the comments just a moment ago saying, I think it was Colin Robinson, I wonder if Ndoye might come back stronger after being dropped. He has been out of sorts, and we've all talked about it in the WhatsApp groups and on social media. People were kind of name dropping it, Ndoye, not in a particularly good way, and his performances have kind of dropped off a cliff. And sometimes you take him out the firing line, and you do hope they're going to come back a bit stronger. What about you, Richard? I mean, he came in with a bit of a fanfare. We went hard after him. He had a chance to go to Napoli. He does have good moments in games, as I've mentioned many, many times, but they seem to have disappeared, and he just looked like he didn't really have much of an idea. I saw him in one of the European games. I think it was the Porto game, where he was really good. So what is the conundrum with Dan Ndoye? And do you think dropping him is going to make him hopefully, shake himself together a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's we touched on this previously. There's just been case studies within our own use cases within our own team where you'd see certain players get dropped and then they come back with a bit more fire in the gut and trying to prove themselves. Williams comes to mind at one point, right? He's been dropped a couple of times and by different managers, and then come back much stronger and much more capable. And I don't, he strikes me as a guy who's just a self-starter. He doesn't need to be primed all the time to improve his game, but he's taken that, I think, to heart and done it in a humble way and come back a better player for it. I think we certainly saw that with Elanga in the couple of seasons he was with Forest. He would have these situations where he would disappear. To Jamie's point about Ndoye's 5 passes within a 45-minute spell, that was his contribution. You'd see similar kind of moments with Elanga as well, especially in that first season. But you understood the material was there. You understood that the capability was there. And Ndoye on an international level seemingly just feels a lot looser and a lot more confident, and he can go into those matches and produce in a way, again, different competition, different levels, potentially depending on who they're playing, but that still shows that there is talent there. And he did a good job in this Serie A last year. So it just feels like he's probably in his head a bit at this stage. He probably is trying to figure out, if I'm not going to be utilized in a roaming role where I can kind of drift into a centralized position, which he did in that first match when he scored a goal. I think it's probably trying to figure out how he adapts to and how he gets utilized. I'm sure Deitch is providing feedback, or Ian Wone and Steve Stone are providing feedback. I mean, Steve Stone, you can't think of a better mentor from a winger perspective, right? So I think it's probably going to work itself out. Will he officially become part of that starting? I mean, ultimately, if Callum continues to make that ascension and Hutch continues to progress, it's almost going to be impossible for him to eclipse that. right? Unless he goes on some crazy run where they've been injured and he comes in and scores a bunch of goals. But invariably, I think he's going to probably have to accept that backup role. I think he came in with fanfare because he showed something in Serie A, but he also came in at a time where we were desperate to find a winger replacement for Elanga. I mean, there was like at a point where we were like, are we ever going to replace that Elanga on that right-hand side? And so I think he came in with probably a very high expectation given his profile. And unfortunately, it just hasn't come to fruition that he's lived up to it. But at the same time, this is the time for him to get right in his mind. Any issues he might have physically that he maybe is struggling with, get right there. Because you've definitely seen flashes of it, just as we did with Elanga, like I keep mentioning. So hopefully that'll come to pass once he gets a chance to kind of maybe show more in the European competition, maybe in cup competitions and so forth. And he gets that confidence back incrementally and comes back stronger for it.
And we want to have competition in all areas. So you want him to kind of come away from the starting 11, I should say, and reflect on what he's got to do to get back in. And if you get minutes off the bench, like Hutch had minutes off the bench, he pushed and pushed and pushed. The Leeds game, it was like an epiphany, and all of a sudden it's like we need to get this guy started. And if those guys that are in the positions and have the shirt, then if they see Dan and Doy coming on and playing really well and they're kind of dropping off, then we're going to see them coming out of the team as well. I'm always going to come to that as well, Rich. So beat me to it, buddy.
Sorry.
Hold that finger. I mean, look, shipping Doy out in Jan, Andrew says, and bring Brennan back in on loan. I was kind of just about to get to this to close on with the Dan and Doy question. Raf, Jamie, I'll come to you first, Jamie, quickly, and then Raf as well. Can you make a case that we bring Brennan back? Is it too soon, or is that ship sailed? I've got a lot of Spurs friends who don't rate him; they slag him off all the time. And could you ever see a scenario where Dan and Doy leaves and we bring Brennan back?
I don't think the two things have to be linked. I mean, I said in the group this week, the great advantage of Brennan Johnson as a target for us is that he's a homegrown player. So he's basically a free hit from a squad registration perspective, both in the Premier League and in Europe. So he'd be one of the very few players we could target that wouldn't require a space to be freed up to register him. So that's worth a lot.
It wouldn't in the Prem. You'd still have to in the Prem because he's over 25 now. It would only work in the Europe. You don't get the free space for homegrown players in the Prem.
Okay. All right. I thought you did. I thought there was still a few. Okay.
No, only under 20.
We've used our max. We've got a full complement of 25 in the Premier League.
Yeah, so he would have to be
penalised for having too many foreign players, whereas we're 3 short in our European.
In the Europa, that would be different.
Right.
Yeah.
Still
in the same way Ryan Yates takes up a 25-man squad place.
Yeah. Okay.
But you're right, Jamie. Europa's the problem area, and it's going to get tougher and tougher games as well. Hopefully, touch wood that we do qualify, get to the knockout stages. Yeah.
But no, I would see. I'd explore it. I wouldn't break the bank for it, but I'd certainly explore it. With Dan and Doy, I mean, I don't know if a loan's the option. I think bringing him off the bench to try and make impacts in the way that Hutchinson did is probably the right thing. I think he started too many games recently. He needs to start having an impact off the bench. But I do think it comes down to him and his application. Like, he's got talent. There's no doubt about that. You don't become a 50, whatever he was, 30, 40 million euro winger if you don't have talent. There's no question. What makes good players is their ability to, like I mentioned earlier with Anderson, problem solve and apply that talent to the situations they find themselves in on the pitch. And he's just not found the formula for that yet. So let's not write him off, but he certainly needs to find a new approach to impact games.
There's cries from some Spurs fans I know that they would like to see Brennan used as a number 9 because Richarlison certainly isn't doing anything particularly well, and they see him and his skill set as very much suited to a number 9. And I always thought that might be where he ends up. He did have a hamstring injury, I think, in his first season at Spurs. That one Spurs friend says they think's hampered him a little bit. He's not looking to kind of explode like he did when he was at Forest. I haven't seen that, but he was their top scorer last season. He had that moment in the Europa League final that got them the trophy, but he's very very much under criticism from a lot of them. They're looking to let him go by all accounts. Crystal Palace want him. Raf, did you want to say something on Brennan Johnson?
It's madness. It's madness, really, because he's got since in what is 2.5 seasons that he's been at Spurs, and he's had injuries during that time. He's still got 27 goals. So that comes up with, that's better than 10 goals a season for a winger. Like, who doesn't want that? He scored you the winning goal that's got you into Champions League. He's your top scorer from last season. He's getting over 10 goals from over the wing. Why wouldn't you want him? So that's the half of it of what I don't understand why Spurs want to get rid of him. Should we get him? It's a bit of a weird one, actually. James got a really valid point about the free extra body that we get in our European squad, which is quite relevant. But he plays off the right. Backwell plays off the right. Hutchison plays off the right. That just leaves Callum playing off the left-hand side. However, I have been challenged about this, and Backwell left-footed, Hutchison left-footed, Callum right-footed, and Brennan, I'm pretty sure, is right-footed, is he not?
Yeah.
So, if you retrain either Hutchison or Backward to play on the left-hand side, then potentially you've got the balance of 2 right foots, 2 left foots, and you can mix and match between getting crosses in first time or cutting in, depending on what the skill set of the centre-backs you're facing are, which for me is the logical reason of why you play certain players and the style you play. But anyway, that's my 2 cents on it. So it would only work if you did that. But the vibes that I get are, I'm actually super happy. I'm really excited for Backward to get back to full fitness, because the glimpses we had when he wasn't even fit were pretty good. And for me, the toolbox that we have with those 4 wingers is actually quite exciting for everything that we need.
Well, I was gonna bring something up too that I wonder, with January coming, and I know we'll have more conversations related to this, but there's rumors too that Callum Wendo might get a loan or potentially go to Paris FC. So, or at least they're looking at him as an option. So my thought process would be, to your point, if we thought we could get Brennan on loan, he becomes that, and I think he has played on the left at times as well for Tottenham. I don't think it's an impossibility for him to fill into that in that area to spell Callum at certain points. I would also say, would that mean that potentially, with Taiwo's injury, with Wood being out and seemingly not coming back anytime soon, would it make sense to consider Dan Ndoye at a number 9 spot? Because he's got the capability, I think, we've seen, I mean, he had that nice header in a more of a centralized role the other night that ended up, resulting in a goal from Jesus. I wonder if he could potentially fill in for that kind of position to spell Jesus, because he's probably closer in terms of physical profile and potentially somewhat in skill sets, rather than trying to lead, as Jamie touched on really well, rather than trying to lead in transition, because he doesn't seem to show enough pace to do what Callum does. He's not as adept on the ball as Callum is. Maybe that central position where there's a little less work to have to do in that regard as a winger, he could be a little bit more of a poacher and take advantage of that kind of centralized position. So I'm curious if that could be something that we could utilize at some point, because maybe that's too much tinkering, but I think he has shown in the past, I believe he's played in a number 9, not consistently as he has on a wing or wing back position, but he has done it. So I think it's probably not an impossibility. That would seem to me to be more of a likely potential transition for a player than maybe Brennan playing a 9, right? Just because I think Dan has a little bit more physicality to his game, and Brennan's elite speed when he is healthy is clearly evident. That's more of a like replacement probably for Elanga in that regard, and he can get assists from that wide position as well. So I'm just curious, just something thrown out. I was thinking about with seeing those Callum Wendo rumors, and we don't have to get into the meat of that right now, Greg, because I know we're already over an hour.
We are out of time, so that's a whole nother conversation. I don't see myself personally see Dan Ndoye as number 9, but we can pick this up on the next pod and maybe chew the bones on that a little bit more. But we've gone over, and I want to make sure that we don't sit and talk about the next conversation for 10 more minutes, because we want to do score predictions. So we'll go round and ask everyone for this Fulham match to give us what you think will happen score-wise, Raf.
So I'm going to do my usual thing. I predicted on purpose a loss for Spurs so that we won, and it worked. And I am too traumatized to verbalise that we will win at Craven Cottage. It just never happens. So I'm going to predict a 1-0 loss, and hopefully that works again.
Okay, like your style, Jamie?
I think score draw. I think probably 1-1.
Okay, thank you. Richard?
I'm going to go because, of course, these things are obviously real, that, shirts and things of that nature have magical properties, or underwear, if you're Paul Morley, or pants, as I guess you would call it in the UK. We were 1-0 and with this kit on, so I'm going to take, we're going to be wearing it again, apparently. Yeah. So I'm going to take a 1-0 win. I think it's going to be cagey per usual. It's going to be that sort of chippy sort of atmosphere with the two teams, because we know, as Raph pointed out, they like to get an own goal or give up a penalty. So I'm going to say we get a 1-0 penalty, and I'm going to say Morgan puts one home and avenges that unfortunate penalty he didn't make against, I think it was Malmo, wasn't it? Or not Malmo, it was Sturmgratz, excuse me. And so, yeah, the magic of the kit, maybe it becomes the new highlighter kit that we saw in our last season of the championship, and we just never lose in it. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. 1-0.
So your score 1-0.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go 2-0. I think we're going to win. I think we're going to bounce onwards and upwards following the win against Spurs. We are clicking into place. I think that the AFCON losses in the Fulham team, as Raf talked about, is actually quite significant for them. And I think that is going to be where we can benefit. We will be without Sangare, but I think the players coming in to fill the gap are going to be more than good enough. 2-0 to Forest. Igor Jesus to score. All right, we're out of time, guys. Thank you so much indeed to everybody for chipping in the comments. If you haven't already, please like the video, please subscribe, and you'll never miss a Talking Reds episode. Thank you to Raf, to Jamie, and Richard. We'll be back, as I said, on Tuesday to look back on the game. So a whole weekend of Premier League football is coming your way, and Forest will be bringing up the rear, and it will be 3 points, hopefully, at Craven Cottage. We'll see you soon.
Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.